Well, the number one job for most parents is keeping their baby alive and healthy. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics says you can cut the risk of sudden infant death syndrome by half by sharing your bedroom with your baby. The Academy also has new guidelines on what you should never, ever leave in your newborn's crib. Joining me now to talk more about this is Dr. Lisa Masterson. She is an OBGYN host of the podcast Health in Heels with Dr. Lisa and former host of The Doctors. Thank you so much for being with us. So these new guidelines suggest babies should sleep in the same room as their parents for 6 months to even a year, but not in the same bed. Talk to us about why the same room, not the same bed is so important, given many parents do choose to keep the baby in another room, don't they, so that everyone gets some sleep. And many mothers, myself included, have taken their babies into bed with them to breastfeed, and eventually, of course, everyone falls asleep.
Right. I think these are great recommendations for parents because lots of times they'll spend so much money on a whole new room. And so these recommendations about the same room but not the same bed. And it's not the same bed that's so important because we worry about sudden infant death syndrome. That's a parent's biggest fear. And so the bedding in the cribs or whatever you use, if you use a bassinet, as long as it's made for a baby, is going to be different than the type of bedding that we sleep on as adults. So that's why not in the bed. And also so that you don't roll on. There's not pillows, there's not other things that the baby can either choke or strangle or get suffocated with. So this is a really good recommendation.
And the swaddling is a great way to calm your baby and, of course, get them off to sleep. But now we're learning that it may even increase the risk of SIDS if babies are not on their backs. But what about the risk of choking on their own vomit if they're on their backs?
Right. So actually a little incline is very good, but the idea is that they're on their backs and they're not face down on their stomachs. That's really what they're trying to say. The incline is best, and you're right, just for that reason. But again, it's so that the mother doesn't have the baby on its stomach and it doesn't have a chance to roll into any, blankets or pillows or any stuffed animals or things like that. Parents really have to watch that. And we found that breastfeeding actually decreases the risk of sudden infant death syndrome, but parents shouldn't fall asleep, or the mom shouldn't fall asleep while she's breastfeeding. That again is another danger. So all these recommendations coming out give parents really good guidelines about what to do when they're afraid about coming home with this, fragile newborn baby.
So does this all mean that doctors have now a better idea of what actually causes SIDS? Because a lot of this discussion seems to be more about the possibility of babies suffocating rather than SIDS, which we've all come to know. A lot of doctors have said they don't really know what causes a child to suddenly die in their sleep.
Right. There is no exact etiology of why this happens, but we do know if you can prevent these type of things that are around it, it does decrease by a huge fraction the number of infant deaths that are caused from that. And SIDS is actually when the baby dies in the first year, and that usually actually happens within the first 6 months. And we know that these type of incidents can happen, and about 44% are due to SIDS. So it's really important to have these recommendations because they really can decrease the risk of these type of deaths in the first year.
All right, so just a quick check of the do's and the don'ts for parents to avoid the possibility of SIDS.
That again, the same room, not the same bed. If they do sleep in a crib, that is, the type of bedding that is appropriate for an infant, that they keep pillows and soft blankets away from it, even stuffed animals. It really should be pretty bare. And again, if they breastfeed, they should not fall asleep with the baby because again, that can also lead to suffocation. And I know it's very, very hard. I, as a parent, I happened to me a couple times, and I also slept with my baby right next to my bed and my arm right on the baby's back because it is such a huge fear. So these guidelines, again, are really going to give parents some confidence about taking home that little baby.
Yeah, so important. Dr. Lisa Masterson, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Some great advice there. Well, 3 Syrian boys